Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome to a somewhat special episode of Puppet Time Online, I suppose. Instead of doing a regular interview show, today we're going to go live from the work desk. This is my actual work desk here in Manhattan, and I've got to get some work done. So why don't you join me? I have a streaming platform and I've got some cameras and, why not? So today I'm going to be working on the puppets for a new production of Hansel and Gretel that is being produced by the Little Orchestra Society. And this is going to be their first online-only feature. A couple of years ago, Puppet Kitchen worked with Little Orchestra Society on their production of Carnival of the Animals, where we did a live overhead camera paper cutout performance to a live performance of Cézanne's Carnival of the Animals. And so this year they called me up and said, hey, you remember all of that equipment and stuff, and remember that paper cutout thing that you did for Carnival of the Animals? Can you do that for Hansel and Gretel? And I said, sure. So they are currently in the process of recording and editing and mixing the vocal tracks and the instrumental performances. And then they're going to send that all to me, and I will perform it on this rig that you're going to be watching from. And I'm going to be performing it to the track and then send it back to them, and they'll edit it and they'll present it live. And I think that's going to be in November. So in the meantime, I've got to make the puppets. One thing that is a little different and is exciting about this production is that the puppets have moving mouths, because there's main characters that sing, as opposed to Carnival of the Animals, where all of the characters are just kind of acting out scenes. So I can show you a little bit about some of the characters that I have. You can probably see some of them over there. I don't want to give too much away, but you'll obviously see all of what I'm working on today. And I want to talk about some of the tools and things that I use. And it really is a technique. It really is something that you can do at home. And especially now, I think this is part of the reason why we are doing this kind of show at this time, is that the tools that you need to perform a puppet show like this, you might already have. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that is, and then I think we'll just get to work. I've got a camera set up here that's pointed down. This is like a nice steel frame that I bought that is specifically made for mounting a camera pointing down at a table. And it works really well because it holds the camera really sturdily. And when you're doing a performance, you don't want the camera to move around. So the one thing that you'll notice, I'll show you here, it for some reason compresses the footage when something happens in between the camera and my computer, probably because it's an older camcorder, and it looks a little smushed. You can see on my little cutting mat that the 1-inch square grid looks a little bit smushed in this way. And I guess it's because it's putting out a 16:9 image, but then it's squishing it when it gets to the computer. I really don't know why it's doing that or how to fix it. So, if you want to see the real footage, you're going to just have to watch Hansel and Gretel on the Little Orchestra Society's website. let's get into it. You can leave comments here, and I can check and see if you guys want to ask about a thing. The screen is like not, I don't know, it's kind of a funny thing this is my first time broadcasting live, like my work process. And normally I'd have music going, or I'd have a podcast going or something like that. Or, if I was at the studio, back when the Puppet Kitchen was in the East Village, people could just come up and ask about a process. And I like that idea. I like that if you're watching, you can ask about what I'm doing, or you can say, hey, show me that thing again, or what are you doing now? The only problem is that, I can't hear you. So I'll try and remember to check in on the comments. You'll have to forgive me for not. Oh, thanks, Katrina. Katrina just told me that I'm doing great from the living room. Normally she's here running the show, but instead she's in the other room getting her own work done and also watching the live stream. So thanks, Katrina. So I'll try and check in on the comments section and catch anything that might come up. Anyway, let's talk about some of the tools that I'm using, tools and materials that I'm using here. So I've got, as you can see, I've got like a cutting mat, which is really, really important because I've got some sharp things. The first thing that I've got is a really nice Olfa blade. And it is, I bought this one because it has a 30-degree cut to it. It's got a little bit sharper edge, but it works with any of the snap-off blades. But if it looks a little different, that's because it has a custom wooden handle that was made by Brendan Yaifute at his studio in upstate New York. And I'll put a link to his information to his website. So he sells incredible woodworking. He was I believe, was he an intern of ours? He was a friend of ours who then went on he was a great puppet builder and performer, and then kind of made a pivot a while ago he started carving wooden puppets, and then just started carving wood and went to an incredible wood carving school in Maine, and now that's his main thing. He makes furniture, and he's been selling these wooden cups online that are really beautiful. So anyway, I have a Olfa blade. I've got a regular old pair of scissors. These are nice because they're pretty big and my hands are pretty big. I put some, just like decorative tape on them or whatever, but they're not fancy scissors in any way. They're Fiskars, and they do get dull, but what I'm doing is not super, I guess that having super sharp scissors isn't really necessary, and I would never use fabric scissors on paper because that would dull the scissors immediately. So instead, I kind of deal with slightly unsharp scissors. They're a little gummy because I am cutting tape and stuff. Again, something you would never do with fabric scissors. And I use that a lot. And then for the little stuff, I have this pair of curved, it's like thread scissors or embroidery scissors, and they have a nice curve to them, which I can actually use either direction, which is really good for getting into tight corners. So these are great. These are actually pretty sharp. I had previously only used them for thread, and I have now changed them into paper scissors by cutting paper. So that's what they're going to be used for now. And then the last, I have a couple other specialty tools. So I have what's called a bone folder, which is a piece of plastic. I think now plastic. I'm sure they were made from bone originally, but it's got kind of a sharp edge on one side, and is made for folding paper. This is a bookbinder's tool. So I use that. You'll see that I have a little silicone mat because I have a hot glue gun that I use. This is just like a mini hot glue gun. Again, we're not doing anything particularly fancy with hot glue here. So it's just a little mini hot glue gun, but to keep the work surface from getting all glued up, I got a little silicone mat, which catches the little glue drops that inevitably fall off, and then they just come right off instead of sticking to the table. I've got a couple of Sharpies. I've got one regular one you saw at the beginning, which is a regular fine point Sharpie, and then I have a nice brush tip Sharpie also that I like to use. And this glue mat also serves as a kind of tool organizer, which is really nice. I have a metal ruler with a nice cork back that's good for keeping things from slipping around. You can also use it to fold stuff, but mostly I use the bone folder. And the other tool that I have, which is the newest addition to my set, which is a little, it's like a little debossing tool. It came in a pack of 5. It was only a couple bucks on Amazon. It was less than $10 on Amazon. It's a pack of 5 debossing tools, and they have different size tips on the top and very fine tips on the bottom. And these are great for both sort of engraving a piece of paper or like pressing into a piece of paper if you want to make a pattern or something. But I use it mostly for tracing the things that I draw onto the colored paper underneath. And you'll see how I do that in a little bit. But this tool is great. It was a huge upgrade. If you don't have one of these, or if you want to do this technique and you can't get your hands on one of those right away, you can use an old ballpoint pen. And it does tend to ruin the ballpoint pen as a pen because you're like pressing really hard on it. But it does really work as a debossing tool. So that's essentially what this is. It's just a ballpoint. It's just a piece of steel on there that is it's made for running smoothly over the paper. I've got a pencil. This is like a really soft or like a really extra dark pencil, which is good. I'm a little wary of, like, maybe I should use a harder pencil or something like that. You have to be really careful because when you're making paper puppets for camera, especially at this scale, with a camera that's so close, any smudges that you make on your puppets are going to be very visible. And so it's really important to like be aware when you are using your pencil and where it is, because it will easily get on the backside of your hand, and then you'll move your hand to a puppet, and then it'll get smudged, and it takes time. I have a roll of double stick tape to use, which is really, really great for, it's permanent double stick tape, so it just sticks right away. For some of the mechanisms and stuff, I have some super glue. And a fun tip that I learned a while ago was that if you sprinkle baking soda on super glue, it sets it up real fast, and you can then use it as a gap filler or make little mounds with it. This is the gel type super glue, which doesn't sort of wick into spaces the same way as a really thin super glue would. But the baking soda trick works on both. I think I watched a YouTube video that also says you can do that with cinnamon, depending on how you want your puppets to smell. Other things that I've got to help. Oh yeah, so this is like the biggest thing, the thing I use the most. I got these pre-stamped foam dots, and these are specifically made for scrapbooking. A lot of the tools and like this, like the debossing tool I got from like the scrapbooking world. Obviously, it's a whole industry that's made around manipulating paper in interesting and creative ways. So I'm borrowing a lot of techniques from that. But these are great. They're little pre-cut dots of foam, and it's really not any different than the fun foam or it's EVA 2mm fun foam. But it has adhesive, like basically it's EVA with double-sided tape on both sides, and it's already pre-cut into little dots. And it just is such a time saver to peel this off and stick it down and peel the other backing off and stick your piece down than to, you know, I did buy some, I also bought some rolls of mounting tape, which is essentially the same thing. But to cut that to size, then peel both sides off, or to cut it, and like, it just saves so much time to use these little dots instead. So so I got a huge box of those. I probably have 25 sheets or something like that. I've made a bunch of stuff. I've probably gone through 5 already. I have a little bag of rubber bands. These are tiny little silicone rubber bands. I think I got from Michael's years and years and years ago, back when rubber band bracelets were all the rage. They are great for mechanism controls, especially at this small scale. I really prefer rubber bands over like a sewing elastic for most mechanisms, if I can help it, because they have a much more consistent stretch, and they stop stretching in a way that I don't know, it's got a different feeling to it. Most sewing elastic is fabric covered, right? So when it stops stretching, it just stops. Whereas this you can kind of feel when it's going to stop stretching. The other great thing about these little rubber bands is that you can just add them on and on and on to get a more desired stretch. And they come in all different shapes and sizes, and they're relatively inexpensive. I have a bunch of non-paper things that I'm using to build. These are like stir sticks that are used for, I don't know, mixing resins and paint and stuff. They're basically just tiny popsicle sticks, long, thin popsicle sticks. They're great for not only to use as like a thing to build the puppet out of, but if I need to hold something down, or if I'm super gluing something, I don't want to glue my fingers down, they make an excellent, extra long finger, I guess. And then I have a bunch of other long skewer type objects. I got these bamboo flat, you can't really call them dowels, but they're like bamboo flat pieces. And they're really thin. They're flexible, which can be really great. And if you like glue them together, they will obviously be less flexible, which is great if that's what you want. They come in a bunch of different sizes. I have some thinner ones and some thicker ones, but they are what I've been using for the controls of these main characters. And then I have like my basic, just like go bag of various short dowels and mostly skewers. And the bamboo skewers that you would use for shish kebabs, for like grilling stuff, I use them all the time. I find that the point is really helpful sometimes, and yeah, they're really great. So I have a ton of that. I'm going to be using some of those as well. And then the paper that I'm using is scrapbooking paper. I ordered a bunch of different papers from a bunch of different sites. Sometimes they come in bound pads. Mostly they come 12 by 12. I'm trying to find some of them. I have a big box of papers that's just I sort of collect all different colors, all different color schemes. Some of them come in a big stack like this, and it's just a bunch of different colors. You'll notice that this has a little bit of texture to it. I don't even know if the camera can pick that up because the camera is so old, but it has a little texture to it, which makes a difference. All of these puppets are pretty small. They're about 8 inches or smaller. And you'll really see that texture. I mean, not necessarily on the live stream, but in the recording, you'll see that texture. And it's all slightly different too. So these are the colors that I've pulled aside for the witch puppet that I'm going to be working on today. I have some sheets of just plain white cardstock. It doesn't have much texture, but that's actually good in this case because this is going to be the backing for the puppet, and it's also going to be used in the eyes. And having those be smooth is actually pretty beneficial. And then these are the textured papers that I have. I don't know if you're going to be able to see any of this texture. Yeah, you can see it a little bit when you get really close. You'll be able to see it in the final version, but it kind of has a canvas look to it. And when you get up really close to it, like it looks really great on camera. So I highly recommend. Again, this stuff all comes from the scrapbooking industry. I have a little box full of the puppets that I've made so far. These are like the little props and side characters and things that I've made so far. And I just keep them in a little box off to the side in case I need to reference anything. I've made a bunch of the main characters that you can see up there. And I have also made already a bunch of the hands and like hands holding props and various things that I'll need throughout the scene. Each one of these hands, you know, is on a little wooden skewer, and it has a front and a back, because the front of the hand and the back of the hand's, you know, different. You got to see that thumb. So you're joining me a little bit mid-process here, but there's still a ways to go, and I guess let's keep going. So the thing that I've been working on recently is the witch for Hansel and Gretel, and she dresses up in various costumes throughout the show for various reasons. One of the costumes, the puppet that I just finished recently, is the witch as a chef. And so she is wearing this chef outfit with like a little chef toque and whatnot. And these puppets, like I said, have moving mouths, right? So they have a little mechanism here. When you pull down on this, it opens the mouth like that. And I, through some trial and error, figured out how to make this mechanism work on both sides. It has been a little tricky. That I will say, it's been a little tricky figuring out how to get basically two puppets that are mirror images of each other that fit on the same profile to work with a mechanism that works off of one button or like one slider, right? Because her jaw on both sides is going to be in different locations, ever so slightly. So getting the mouth to close at exactly the right point on both sides and still work the same. Like you can see her expression is just a little different on both sides, right? But there's not really any way to avoid that with this technique that I'm doing. So depending on how long this podcast goes, or how long this video goes, you'll get to see some of how this mechanism works. But one thing that I have noticed is that I have built this mechanism so far 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And I really didn't figure it out until about the third time I built it. And it continues to improve every time I build it. The first time I built the witch, she has a very different mechanism. It's not very different, but it looks very different, right? This is basically the prototype. It's got this green sleeve on it. It's got, you know, it looks very different than this other mechanism. So this is the more refined version. I might go back and redo this mechanism so that it works like this one, because this one's a little bit more reliable. But oh, I didn't talk about the brads. Where did they go? They're running around here somewhere. Oh, yes, here. They're, again, this is like all office supplies and stuff that I'm using. I use these little brads that you probably recognize, that you can put through a piece of paper, and then you fold out the two back ends, basically a cotter pin for paper. So I'm using these just as, like, I don't know, I had a million of them. They bend easily. They work with paper. I don't know, a lot of my process is like looking around the room and saying, oh, that might work. So I like to fill my room with lots of stuff. That's why it's a little messy. Oh, Hi, Jess. Jess is asking, what am I using for backgrounds? Good question. The short answer is that for the backgrounds, I have big pads of paper that are like Bristol smooth heavyweight paper and like watercolor paper. And the backgrounds, and I haven't decided how to do the backgrounds yet. I'm sort of leaving that for future Eric. I'm thinking about it as I'm building, because I consider a bunch of things when I'm thinking about it. I have to think about what I want it to look like, how many there are, the aesthetic that I want to get, but also I think about how much time it's going to take and how much time I have to do it. That all kind of goes into the equation. So it's possible that the backgrounds might be paintings or drawings that are just flat but have a little bit of depth of color that makes the puppet stand out a little bit. It might be that the backgrounds are layers, but that they are watercolor, like sort of like Eric Carle style watercolor pieces of paper to make them different colors, then cut them out, then put them in layers. It might be that the white piece of paper is just there so that I have a consistent thing to set under the camera, and I can build a little jig to hold each piece of paper in place the same way, and that I just pile the same kind of paper on top to build the background. I don't really know yet. Some of the backgrounds have to have doors, some of them have to have things that happen to them. So again, I'm still kind of figuring that out. It's a good question though. So this mechanism, the way it works is that there's one big stick that holds one control that holds the whole puppet right down the middle. And then there is two of these little stir sticks that go up underneath the puppet, and then the jaw attaches to that just with some more of the little foam tabs. And then all of these brads are here to either hold the stir stick in place, or to bind the two stir sticks together, or to give a place for the rubber band to hold on to. So this one, this brad, sort of the two tails here kind of hold that stir stick in place from going up and down too much. This one holds the two stir sticks for each of the jaws together. This brad and this brad serve as the bases for the rubber bands. And then I put a little dot of hot glue, and that's what I hold on to. There's another stir stick that's glued down to the control that serves as the guide for the main control. And this brad, in addition to holding on to the guide, holding the guides down to the main control and providing an anchor, this guide, like the rubber bands, are pulling this way, so it's holding the control against that guide. It's not letting them slide out this way, which would change the orientation of the jaw if it sort of slid out away from the thing. So like now I've built this mechanism 6 times, and I have built the witch a couple of times. So as I was building this witch, as I was tracing the patterns for this witch and cutting them out, I tried to think ahead and cut out pieces of the witch that we're going to be working on today, which is the witch dressed as the Sandman. Now, I don't really know what the Sandman is supposed to be wearing. I feel like I've seen a bunch of representations of the Sandman in culture, but like she does come on screen and say, "I'm the Sandman, and I'm here to make you fall asleep." So that's a bonus, but like, how are we supposed to identify that she's the Sandman? So I'm going for a witch in pajamas. Now, all of these pieces that I've cut out, these are the pieces that don't change between between any of the iterations of the witch. So I'll just do a little test fit here. This is her body piece, and I have traced out on this piece with the debosser. I'm going to see if you can see that as much as well as I can see it. Yeah, you can just barely see that I've traced out where her mouth goes on this piece. So that will eventually get colored in with the Sharpie in black. And it helps me get a guide for all the rest of the pieces, where they're supposed to go. So that's her body piece. Her legs and stockings, which have already had the yellow stripes applied to them, go just underneath her body. She has 2 shoes, and I've got to remember to put the shoes in the right direction. One of them is smooth, one side is smooth, and one side is textured. So one shoe goes there, one shoe goes here. Then she's got some eyeballs that will eventually get little dots, little Sharpie dots on them to make her eyeballs. She's got a nose that goes about there. She's got a jaw. This is the jaw that moves, and it has a little lip that's been folded down. And the way that I did that was just to run the debosser right underneath the edge and then carefully fold that over. So she has a little bit of 3D look to it. So that goes like right there-ish. She's got a brow. It's like a little eyebrow that covers up the top of her eyes. And she has, oh, I forgot, underneath her jaw is a little tongue like this. And then the jaw goes on top of that. And you see the edge, this edge of the jaw lines up with that hole cut in her body, because the stir stick control will go underneath her body, but has to come through it to hold on to the jaw. For the other puppets, the jaw is behind the body, so it works a little bit differently, but it's the same idea. But because she has that hole cut in her, and fortunately, it's also a character choice, she has this jowl that covers on top of that where the jaw connects. And on that jowl, she has a little ear. So that's essentially what we're doing. And then up here in the corner, you can see I have the same pieces, but cut in mirror image, because she has to have the same textured look, but facing the other way on the other side of the puppet, so that she can move in both directions on screen. Now, it's possible that I could have storyboarded out the entire show and decided which direction the Sandman Witch needs to travel at any time, and then only built half of it. And that would have saved me a lot of time. However, now by making both sides work equally well, it frees me up during production to act a little bit more and to have more options built in, because I can change directions. Like if I had built her to only face one direction, but I wanted her to enter and leave from the same side, she would have to enter and then sort of back out. And that wasn't necessarily a look that I wanted to go for with this. So I'm building in some options because I'm not exactly sure what the show is going to look like, because I don't have the music, I don't have the recording yet. I'm kind of trying to balance what's going to take a lot of time to build with what's going to give me the most options. That's something that I do all the time in puppet design. So the one thing that I do have to do is that I have to decide on what the look for this witch is going to be. So this is the design for the original witch, and this is just a drawing that I made on a piece of paper. And over the course, so when I built the witch the first time, I went over, I didn't have my debosser yet. So as I was going over this design to trace out each piece underneath, we'll do that in a little bit, it left a little line. Now the bonus is this is kind of like an X-ray view of what the witch looks like when she has her original robe on and her original hat, and she has her original nose, which is different than the nose that we changed it to. So originally she had a pointy green nose, but it didn't look as good, and I couldn't really tell that there was a nose on there. So I changed it to be the pink nose that you've seen. This is right by the microphone, so I'm sorry for the noise. So I did draw a little version of that, but I changed it after I made photocopies of this design. So what happened is, so I'm going to use this as a way to sort of sketch out what I want her Sandman look to be. This is at the right size, and I have a lot of photocopies of it. It's not a great, like, it's far away, but like I know the drawing well enough that I can see what's going to happen. I can see what the design is. So for instance, when I wanted her to dress as a chef, I took that same design and just literally drew on it with a Sharpie where I wanted the chef hat to go and her little extra bit of hair, and like where she's got a double-breasted jacket on instead of the single-breasted, witch cape, and these 6 little buttons. That's basically the only difference. But knowing that that's the only difference is really super helpful. So I'm going to do the same with the Sandman design. And honestly, I've done some sketches of it, but you guys are going to be the ones to see how this actually works. And I have a bunch of other photocopies up here in case I mess up. But let's try not to mess up. I have my window open. You can probably hear all the stuff that's going on outside. But so for that, I apologize. And I don't know, my neighbors have been knocking. This is what it's like to work in New York City, for those of you who are viewing outside. And there's just noise all the time. So this is the witch as the Sandman. So I feel like pajamas are the way to go. I feel like definitely the hat is the indicator on that. So let's do like a hat piece that like has a little thing like that, maybe. And maybe this then comes down behind here and it's got like a pom-pom on it. And it's got maybe a hat band. I did that with the chef's hat. It was a pretty nice look. That goes behind the ear, which is going to be nice. And that's going to go behind the ear, which is going to be good. So again, we're just kind of drawing the X-ray. It might be a bit tall. Maybe we'll bring it down to here. Maybe flatten it out a little bit. Okay. If this is going to join right here, then I need to make sure that this piece actually has a bit of width to it, and maybe I'll add a little bulb on this piece of paper so that there's enough to attach the with one of the little foam dots. Okay, so she's got a little hat. I'll probably make some. So maybe we'll round out her. No, we'll make her pajamas the same as this, but maybe we'll give her some stripes. And that piece goes in there. I'm gonna go stripes, stripes, stripes all the way across. I think we'll keep her legs the same. Maybe we should give her like some bunny slippers or something. It'd be kind of fun. The bunny slippers, they have the ears. Which way do the ears go on bunny slippers? Here? Like that? I don't know. It kind of looks like a little elephant. No, I feel like maybe she should have little slippers on though. And they should go up at the toes like that, like they were her witch socks, or witch shoes. I don't know, maybe the ears are a nice touch. She should have like a little like fuzzy bit at the top for her slippers. Let's say that that's how we're going to do the slippers. A little fuzzy bit at the top. We'll nix the ears. It was a nice thought. Maybe they'll come back later once we see what this looks like. But it's like a little ring, little round slipper, striped pajamas, and her hat probably needs to be striped too, which is not exciting, but probably necessary, just because stripes take a really long time to make. But that's probably the right thing to do. That seems right. I know it looks really messy, but I think that's probably going to be it. The stripes, we're not going to trace out the stripes in paper. We're going to do those live when we get there. And what else do I know? I know that we can put her shoes aside because we're going to give her new shoes. Now, does that mean, I wasted time cutting out her shoes? A little bit, but I have options. Those shoes might come back into play later on another version. They might, I don't know, might be useful somewhere as just props or something. Okay. So the other thing that now that we're going to get into cutting out her pieces, I'm going to put the other versions of her back in the box. It's nice that I can still see them. I don't know if you can see. They're right up here. I can still see them kind of looking out over the workspace, so I can kind of reference her look. Okay, so now we've got this. Now we need to pick out some colors for her pajamas. I don't think, I guess we could use the same, you know what? So she's got a cream, I picked out a cream color for her chef outfit. But I think what we might do is find, maybe she's got powder blue pajamas with a cream color stripes. So let's hang on to that for stripes. And I feel like she does need pink pajamas. Now I do have a pink picked out for her nose, but I think that might be confusing. If I use the same color for her nose as her slippers. So I'm going to go back into my papers and find a nice pink that I like. I think it might be in here. Let's see. This is another pack of just like a bunch of papers. It's a little bit thicker than one of the other packs that I have. I feel like bunny slippers is kind of funny. I don't know what bunny slippers look like. Is that the same pink as her nose? It's a good pink. Yeah. So we can't use that. So we gotta find something that's like, yeah, there's one other pink in here, but it's too dark. I don't think we want that. There was a request from Little Orchestra Society to try and make sure that the witch is on the funnier, sillier side. Some of you out there might be asking, why pink bunny slippers for a witch? Witches are scary. To which I would say, some witches are scary. And this one in Hansel and Gretel, that threatens to eat children, definitely scary. But I think that is going to be why we're contrasting it with making her a little on the sillier side. I think pink bunny slippers are going to be a good choice. How's that? That's like real pink. That's like kind of a maroon pink. I think that might also be Gretel's nose, which might still work. So I'm going to pull that. Is there a light blue in here that I want to pick for her pajamas? Oh, maybe like a lavender. Oh yeah, that's going to be good. Let's do lavender because, is that going to be good? That's the same color as Papa's beard. Oh, it's the same color as Gretel. As Gretel's skin, maybe not lavender. Would have been nice because her normal dress is purple. If I use this blue yet? Oof. That's like, that pink and blue is very pink and blue. I really wanted something that's like a powder blue. but I don't know if I have anything like that. Hold on. I wonder if there's something in these grays that is more powder blue-like. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that's super gray. This is really good television, isn't it? Do we give her just gray and cream pajamas and pink bunny slippers? It would definitely make the bunny slippers stand out. Yeah, that might be good. Okay, let's pull that gray. It's kind of a bluish gray. Yeah, let's do gray and white. Gray with cream stripes. Great. It's going to be your pajamas base color. Is there going to be a place for that blue? Maybe the pom-pom is blue. It's really bright, so we might have to use it very sparingly. Might be a place for that. Okay, we're going to hang on to it. I'm going to put it up here with the rest of my colors. There's just like a little box up here. Okay. Now I'm just really curious because I really want to know what bunny slippers look like. So I'm just going to look it up. I do this all the time. Oh, look. Okay. So there's a bunch of images. All right. So like bunny slippers have, oh, sometimes they have the whole head on them? No, that's silly. But yeah, I guess they do have the ears up there and then the eyes in front. They just don't, I guess we'll put a little, if we put eyes there and we put a little triangle nose on there, will they look like bunny slippers? Maybe the ears have to be like in front of her leg a little bit. All right, we'll find out. We'll see if we can get them to read like bunny slippers. Okay, so now we're going to start in on making these transfers. So the base color for her coat or for her pajamas is this gray. So I'm going to lay that down and then lay this right on top of it. And I'm going to try and scoot this. I'm going to do this piece right here, this first flap. Or maybe the blue could be her buttons. That'd be good. I'm going to try and get this up close to the edge. I'm just looking to make sure that this is like as close as I can get it. And then I just trace the outline of that with this debossing tool. Just like that. And that leaves a little impression. Let's see if you can see this. Leaves a little impression of just that piece on the paper. And it's just light enough for me to be able to see it. So I go in, and the first thing I do is cut out just like the rough shape. It's much easier to manipulate a little tiny piece rather than the whole big piece of paper. So then I go in and I'll just cut that out. I don't know how well the sound is picking up, but this could be my foray into ASMR videos. We'll have to start talking more. Stop talking more quietly. Okay, so we got that piece. But yeah, let's get that piece. Before I forget it, I'm going to just copy it. I'm going to put it on the piece of paper here, flip it over so that the textured sides are touching. And then I use the small side to trace around it. Okay. This goes in the facing to the left pile, and the one I'm about to cut out goes in the facing to the right pile. And really it's just like, I don't know, I should have little trays or something for these, but here we are. This is how it works. think my years of experience have really just taught me the things that I should be doing. Not necessarily how, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do them. Okay, let's do the next piece, which is this. Again, like I'm trying to angle it so that I'm trying to tessellate it into the other cuts as best as I can. This is why I cut it out. This is why I do each shape individually, so I can try the best I can to conserve paper. And this one has just a little overlap. Okay. And that. Can you hear that tapping of my neighbors? I have no idea what that could possibly be. It starts at like 8:30 in the morning. And they've only been doing it recently, but it has been the past couple weeks, maybe? I don't know. It's driving me a little bonkers. Okay. Let me make sure you can see this. There we go. I'm using the smaller end of the debossing tool because it traces more closely to the piece. Did I flip this one over? I didn't. Is that going to be a problem? I might. Do they look significantly different? No, they don't. There's fortunately, this paper has patterns on both sides. Haha. So I lucked out. I don't know. It's a lot of things to keep straight around here. And sometimes I don't get them all at the same time. If I had to trace that one over, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I would want to avoid that spot with any other pieces because it would have debossing lines through it, and you could potentially see those on camera when you're filming. So look, now flip it over, it goes into that pile. Great. Let's see, what's the next piece? Oh, her hat. So make sure that you all can see this as well. I work very close to the edge of the table. I am sitting at a table that is standing height, but I have found that it's actually pretty beneficial for this task. It keeps things very close because I'm working with the debosser, which like doesn't really make super bold marks like purposefully. Which is also why I have a bright light shining directly on my workspace. And I'm like cutting out very small things, so it keeps me from kind of hunching over a standing table. Yep, looks like I got everything. I hope that this is interesting to watch. I watch a lot of DIY stuff on YouTube, so maybe this is interesting. If it is, just give us a like or say hi in the comments. It's also just a good record of like what I'm doing. and a good way to connect to people. No, it's not the best way to connect to people because I can't hear you. But I know you're out there. It's nice to know that you're watching. Maybe you've put this on while you're working. And it's sort of like being back at the shop. Those of you, any of you who are watching, who remember our old shop, Jess Simon, I remembers the old shop in the East Village. And there would just be people working all over. It was one of my favorite parts of the old Puppet Kitchen. It's just the community of people that we built there, that we, that we brought together. Okay, I'm going to copy this piece. Okay. Obviously, I've got a lot more of this to do. So if you are enjoying this broadcast, or if you have caught this broadcast after it's live and you want to know about more another time when we're going to do live from the work desk, let me know. You can reach out to, you can either leave a comment on this video wherever you saw it, or you can reach out to us at contact@puppetkitchen.com. Visit our website, puppetkitchen.com. But yeah, let me know if this is the kind of thing that you like to tune into. I'm going to have to do it a lot more because I got a lot more puppets to build, but it's nice to have people along for the ride. So we got to do a hat band next. Okay. All right. You may also notice that none of this is super precise. I mean, the cutting it out is pretty precise. I do follow the lines that I've set down pretty closely. However, I try not to worry about it too much. And certainly the tracing part. I mean, you saw how fast I drew, and like how many times I kind of changed that hat design or the design for what she should look like. I feel like I'm a relatively impatient designer. And so I like to get the ideas out. I like to just see what they look like. So if that means things have to change on the fly, then they sort of change on the fly. Now, if I was designing a puppet for someone else, that would be a different story. For someone else to build, that'd be a different story. But when it's just me, there's a certain amount of, I didn't flip that one either. Fortunately, it seems not to make a difference. There's a certain amount of shortcuts that I can take because I know that it's me that has to deal with it. That's not always the case. Thanks, Jess. Is it really good? Is it like the cutting paper stuff? Is good at ASMR content. For those of you who don't know what ASMR is, it stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And if you've ever watched Bob Ross and felt like a little tingly sensation in the back of your head, that is the experience of ASMR. It has since turned into a huge corner of the internet, especially YouTube. And a lot of it, I think, is a bit weird, even though I do get that tingly sensation. It's all right. We said cream stripes. Yeah, we'll do cream stripes. Let's make let's do the pink and the blue. Let's get that little pom-pom out of the way. And I'm just going to cut a little square because I don't want to have to bring the whole piece of paper over here. Make sure I got the textured side. Make sure that it's underneath that circle. Use my light to sort of hold it in place. There we go. Could I have just eyeballed the circle and traced it out? Yes. But I don't know. Maybe this is worth it. And why don't we, while we're cutting this little pom-pom, let's make a little wavy line so it has a little textured edge to it. Not in the original design here that I drew, but you know what? It's a pom-pom, so it should have something. There we go. That's nice. Oh, I gotta cut one more. Now, of course, the wiggly edge isn't going to be exactly the same on both sides, but that's okay. So you may notice that I'm holding my scissors still while I'm cutting and sort of pushing the paper through it rather than, I don't know, sort of moving the scissors around, especially when I'm doing small tight edges like this. That's essential. It's very difficult to like manipulate your wrist that way. It's much easier to move the paper around, especially a small piece like that. Okay, let's do some bunny slippers. Let's do double. Okay. There's a lot of motorcycles in my neighborhood. Okay, that's just the base part of the slipper. I'll probably do the same slipper for both feet instead of a slightly different slipper. So that means I'm going to need, so like this slipper is going to be this slipper on the other side, and then when I copy them, they will give us our matches. Now, I also, at one point, was thinking a lot about whether I needed to do this kind of cutting out on the Cricut. The Cricut is the silhouette cutting machine that I have. There are other kinds of machines that are the same, the Cameo. I think there's one that's called the Silhouette. Essentially do the same thing. It's basically a desktop CNC that holds like a little knife blade point. It's great for cutting out paper. Again, it comes out of the like card making, stationery, scrapbooking industry, craft industry. And it's great for making the same, like making very detailed cuts, because you design everything in the computer and then you attach the paper to these little sticky mats and run it through the machine, and it cuts exactly what you wanted to cut. And you can cut a million of the same thing. So I debated whether or not I should do this build with the Cricut, cutting all the pieces, rather than cutting all of these things by hand. And ultimately I decided to do it by hand, mostly because the time that it took to make, I did do some tests on the Cricut. I designed the initial family of characters I designed on the computer. And then when I switched over to doing it by hand, I just printed out those designs and traced over them, just in the same process that I'm using now. But using the Cricut, like the pipeline, as you would call it, just didn't quite work for me and my creative process on this build. It ended up being more time spent in the computer, which felt more like a block to my creative energy, right? Like I learned to draw on paper, not a tablet, so I'm a much more analog thinker when it comes to creative things. And so I can draw on a piece of paper much more quickly. Rather than, and then I can cut a thing out. If I see a scrap of paper, I can turn that into a thing. It's like I have a little bit more agency. And I'm only building most of the things one time. So the Cricut would be really great if I was building multiple copies of the thing over and over and over again, but I'm not. So it's just going to be all by hand. I guess let's do this. This is the little ears for the little bunny rabbits. Bunny slippers. Oh, these were the better ears. So let's do those. So they might have to be bigger ears. Is that right? I kind of invented a line here. No, they'll go behind and that will be okay. But they are small enough that I think I will use the little scissors on these. This one is slightly, it's not symmetrical, so I will have to flip it to copy it in here. Okay. And, it helps on something as small, especially, it helps to remember that debossing tool on the outside of the actual piece. So I should be cutting to the inside of this debossed line. This is where I would make some stupid joke about Tony Danza. He's the boss. Wow, Angela's the boss. Or Mona. Or Samantha. Oh, I have to make more of those because there's so many bunny slippers. Okay, let's get this picture. Everybody, let's make sure that looks good before we, right? If that goes underneath here like that, is that going to read like a bunny slipper? Yeah, it's probably good enough. That's probably going to read fine. The eyes and the nose on there will help. Yeah, okay. So let's make some more of these. Make one that's facing the same way. Thanks, Jess. I will definitely tag this as unintentional ASMR. I'm not going to lie. During these stressful times, I definitely watch some of the, like calligraphy videos on YouTube. Those things are great. Just watching somebody do calligraphy for a while. I don't know. Maybe that's what gave me the idea to do this. Olga encouraged me, though. The Puppet Kitchen managing director. She encouraged me. She's like, you need to do some stuff where we can watch you working because it's interesting. Olga's excited about the bunny slippers. That's good. I must have known, Olga, that you were waiting for bunny slippers, and just I could feel it in the air. Bunny slippers were a thing that needed to happen in this show. Couldn't agree more. I keep forgetting that you can't see it. I can't see what I'm doing unless I put this right up close. Right in the middle of the frame. Again, if I had a viewfinder in front of me, that would probably be easier, but that's not how my studio is set up. So here I am turning my head to catch your comments. I can't think of anything worse than that at the moment. Okay, so now the bunny slippers have ears. That's great. I have a bunch of scraps. So I throw my scraps onto this little piece of cardboard that catches them all. It's a bit like the trick that I learned for when you're cooking. You keep a bowl next to you to hold all your shavings and scraps and stuff so that you can just throw it all out at once. Now this is a scrap from the cat noses that I made. And I think that is just going to be our default animal nose piece. And instead of like being really exact about this and making the exact same nose 4 times, I'm going to cut a little strip and then I'm going to cut triangles off of that. They'll be a little uneven, but they're going to be great. Oh, shoot. Well, I should do it again because otherwise that's going to be annoying. So what I forgot, I'll do it now. What I forgot is we'll do this when we do the stripes, but it's so much easier to put the tape on first and then cut tiny shapes. That usually I'll put, if I just cut a strip like that, I would just put tape on the back and then cut it with the tape already on so that I wouldn't have to cut these shapes twice, basically. Because now I have all the pieces. Now I'm just going to cut the tape off of those. Okay, just so I don't lose them, I'm going to put them on right away. Bunny slippers. It's funny because the witch has like these feet that point up, but that's going to make it harder to read as bunny slippers. I mean, you guys will all know when you watch the show, you will all know that these are supposed to be bunny slippers, and everyone else will just know that the witch is wearing weird shoes. And I'm perfectly fine with both of those interpretations of what is being seen. Okay. Try my best to keep the double stick tape from gumming up these little tiny scissors, because that really will make them less effective. But sometimes there's no way around it. Sometimes you have a tiny thing with tape that needs to be cut. There we go. All right, now they have little noses. They kind of look like super weird pink elephants or something, but again, I think it's gonna be fine. Okay, let's make some stripes for her pajamas. What did we say, cream stripes? Yeah. So just like the tiny little noses, we are gonna lay down some double stick tape first. And then we're going to cut it into stripes. It's going to be so much easier. Now I probably only need, we'll just about that much. First go. Okay, another one. I hope I don't run out of tape. That would be just perfect. No, I have another roll, but it's not on it's not in a dispenser. It's like a big industrial roll. I don't know where I got it. I think it's left over from when we were in the studio. Okay, that's going to be a good start. So I got two pieces of double stick tape side by side, and I'm going to cut them out roughly at first. I like the rough shape first. And then we'll cut it down so that all of the paper that is used has double stick tape on it. So I'm going to cut off these sides that don't have any tape, but I'm going to try and cut very close to those so I don't end up wasting that double stick tape. And if you're asking yourself, how many times can he say double stick tape during one live stream? The answer is more than you think. More than I thought, anyway. All right, so now, so we've got a hat that needs stripes, one side of her shirt that needs stripes, other side of her shirt that needs stripes. I'm going to leave stripes off of her headband. That's going to be part of how you know that it's a separate piece. But it's like the outside fabric has been wrapped up underneath, like folded up underneath. Now I've got my drawing that's going to give me kind of a guide as to how these stripes need to go. These are a little bit curved, so I'm going to do those last. I'm going to start with the easy ones, which are these like straighter stripes. And these might look a little bit curved. I'm just going to go ahead and make them pretty straight. I'm going to start with the easy stuff, and then we'll go into some curvier ones. So I'm going to measure out, I don't know, that much. How much is it? 1/16 of an inch? A millimeter? We'll never know. It's very thin. I wonder if that's too thin. Okay. And then lay it down. I'm going to run it off of the edge of this one a little bit. Like that. And I'll be able to trim it up later. These pieces are so small that I can actually curve it a little bit. That one's not going to be big enough to go across the whole piece, or this one, but it will be good to go on this cap. So maybe I'll try and put it right there. Will this one work? Yeah, this one will go down here. Okay. So basically, I've made my own tape. It's just paper tape that I'm going to cut into pieces for these stripes. I have used, on other projects, I've used gaff tape as a visible thing. In fact, it's actually pretty common to cover like puppet controls in gaff tape, mostly because it's widely available on film and TV sets. But I mean, it's sticky and it's the right color, and it's much easier. It's more durable than paint, so why wouldn't you? And with this, like, we know that everything's going to match because they're all coming from the same color, like paper palette. That looks pretty good. We know that there might be a little bit of texture that you can see, which would be nice. That's going to look good, I think. Yeah. And these stripes are not all the same length or same width either. But I think, again, like, one of the things that we're going for in this production is that you can identify that handmade look. I think it's good in a kids show, a show meant for families and young audiences, that there is a certain amount of accessibility to the aesthetic. Not necessarily, accessibility in a different sense of the word. That you can look at that and say, oh yeah, I can imagine how that was made. And Puppet Kitchen tends to do that with a lot of their shows. And I think it really makes a difference. Oh, thank you. I assume that's Olga posting this for us. I'm making a witch puppet for the Little Orchestra Society's production of Hansel and Gretel. And the view that you're seeing now, this sort of overhead shot, that's going to be more or less the same place that the camera is going to be during the actual show. I'm going to be filming these I'll be filming these puppets from above and performing the puppets flat to the camera this way. But I think it will be, when the backgrounds are in, it will look like you're looking straight out. So I think it'll be a cool effect. I sort of like the designs that have a little bit of jitter to them as well. That's like the line thickness is not 100% consistent. The you know, that's got a little, you can see that the cut edges. It's sort of like, for those of you that follow Aardman animation, they have a real aesthetic where you can, they like to show the fingerprints, they say. Show the fingerprints in the plasticine when they're doing stop motion animation. I think that that's kind of a nice way to live. Kind of don't try and, I mean, I also admire the work where you just have no idea how things were made. Don't get me wrong. But I think there's something to be said for showing your work in certain contexts. I'm just trimming up the sides here, and the scraps are just going right into the little scraps pile, rather than getting all over the table, because they're so tiny and they're sticky already. So there we go. Just gets everywhere. Okay, now we need some of those curved stripes for the hat, if we can. I'll make these really thin, and maybe they will curve on their own, or maybe we can curve them as we go. Rather, those look nice. Let's see. Really though, what are they pounding on over there? Okay. Looks like we probably just need one more for this side of the hat, and then we'll do this all again on the other side. Is it tedious? It's a little tedious. Oh yes, of course, we're gonna need one more, but just one. Of course. Well, you can see I was a little more careless on the getting the edges of that one right, because I know that the hat band is gonna cover that. so it gives me a little bit of freedom there. Okay, and before we move on to the next one, let's just take our bone folder here and we'll just give these a little press just to make sure that the glue sticks down, or the tape sticks down all the way. Especially on these little tiny ones, there just isn't much surface area for the tape to grab, so I want to make sure that it all gets used. Okay. All right, and shoot, while we're here, let's put on the little pom-pom. There you go. And we can put the hatband on too. That looks good, right? Yeah. Oh, we want it to stick out a little bit. Yeah, that looks about right. Something like that. Yeah, that's about right. There's our hat. It's not too shabby. And then paired up with these pajamas. Looks like a pretty nice hat and pajamas. Okay, so let's do the stripes for the other side, and then we can start. I think that will be all the bits, right? Yeah, we can start assembling the witch all together after that. Okay. So now we've got pieces that go in the other direction. And we might have to make more tape, but who knows? Ooh, I already have some. Save it for later. Okay. Oh, looks like we have another question. Let's just take a moment. Oh, Katie from the living room says, have you made other shows in the same style of puppets and or filming? Yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning, but for those of you that are just tuning in, this style of puppet, this sort of puppet style of the overhead camera and cut paper, we did with the Little Orchestra Society a couple of years ago for their production of Carnival of the Animals. And that was performed by Emily DeCola and Mindy Leance, Escobar Leance now. And it was at the Danny Kaye Theater in the Kaye Theater in on the Upper East Side, 68th Street. And we've done other cut paper stuff. Yeah, you know, a while ago we also had we did a production for, that one didn't fit? Yeah, just barely. We did a production for the Orchestra of St. Luke's that was a piece by Mio, and we called it Mio in Rio, I believe. And it was, again, like an overhead cam red camera shot, live paper cutout piece. That one was also, again, much less character based. It was more landscapes, and like the idea was like kind of following a bird flying through this stylized, picturesque Rio de Janeiro. That was several years before Little Orchestra Society, before Carnival of the Animals. But again, we were sort of starting to experiment with this overhead camera style, which was new to us, but not new by any means in the puppetry world. I have seen some really great overhead camera work from Tim Lagasse and Jim Napolitano. They have done some fun pub pieces in this style. And Katie and I did our piece. One of our favorite puppet playlist pieces is in this style, called Fingertips. That was for one of the very first puppet playlists many, many years ago, and we performed it again for the National Puppetry Slam not too long ago. And we performed it live. It was fun with this exact same setup. And for that, we had little pieces of tape on our fingertips that had faces drawn on them and very quick illustrations of scenes behind them. And this was for They Might Be Giants. They have a series of 21 songs on one of their albums, 21 short songs. They're like under a minute a piece, called Fingertips. And so we just enacted out of like a bunch of little silly scenes. Between Katie and I, we had 20 fingers, and then the last finger was always a surprise whenever we performed it. Katie and I have also used this setup for a puppet playlist piece for the most recent puppet playlist that happened, called, which was number 30, and the theme was home. And Katie and I created a short film about two mice who are stuck, or who are sort of living out their best life in a house when the owners fall asleep. It's sort of about appreciating the house that you have. It was especially poignant during this time when everybody was inside. Everybody's still inside. I've also seen this technique. I mean, this is essentially the same idea as an overhead projector, except that you're able to do color. You know, if this was an overhead projector, this would be your platter, and then the camera would be the lens that would just be pointing the light towards the screen. And so performing this way, like on top of a platter, it's very similar. It's like that is a tried and true technique in puppetry. I guess it can't be that old because overhead projectors are not that old. But, you know, and the adaptation of that, I mean, that style is the main aesthetic for companies like Manual Cinema, who do incredible live cinema with overhead projectors, or live animation essentially with overhead projectors. So yeah, it's just kind of an adaptation of it's kind of a combination of shadow puppetry and television puppetry, or camera puppetry. I like it because this kind of cut paper aesthetic, this look, has always been a favorite of mine. I have a book called Cartoon Modern that is a sort of retrospective of the mid-century modern style that was prevalent in the mid-century modern cartoons of the 40s and 50s. Looney Tunes and some of the more independent Fleischer pictures and stuff like that. But they all had a lot of even the advertising, animated advertising at the time had such a great style. And I really feel like that, I don't know, I would love to be designing in that style. I would love to be working in that style. And this is sort of my version of that. It's like big blocks of color and stylization that is kind of a bold stylization. And I don't know, I just really like the look. I like the flexibility, the freedom in the designs that it offers. Hope that answers your question, Katie. I imagine you might have been setting me up to talk about Puppet Playlist, and that was a good idea. I will also be using this style. This did not come out as curved as I had wanted, but it's okay. I will also be using this style to create a new short film that is an original production of mine, a new story, for which I was awarded the Handmade Puppet Dreams quarantine mini commissions. And this was a series of mini commissions for short films to be made during quarantine. They will be. I'm submitting them in December, so it's going to come up pretty soon. And Handmade Puppet Dreams, I believe, will distribute them on these short films on Amazon Prime. And there are some really excellent artists as a part of this cohort. And I'm really lucky to be included in that group. There's going to be some really excellent work. And I'm going to be doing mine all in this cut paper style. So fortunately, Hansel and Gretel has provided an opportunity for me to really practice this style and get real good at this style, and work out a lot of the bugs before I put something to film for a larger distribution. Hansel and Gretel, obviously, I'm gonna make sure it looks excellent, but it really helps to practice. And I've had some experience doing this style, but not a ton, and it all helps. Okay, that's the second pajamas. Looks pretty good. So let's start assembling this witch. Which witch? This witch. We got both sides, so it is a bit of a switch witch, but that's okay. Okay, so we got bunny slippers, we got pajamas, we got the body. Yep. Okay. You know what? That's going to be good. So this, because it has a mechanism, it is going to be a little trickier. But I'll tell you what, so in a tricky setup like this, the best thing that I always do is just to start with what I know, and then work into the more difficult things, right? I know that I'm going to have to think about what's happening in this space where her jaw goes. One thing I keep forgetting to do is to allow space, since this piece is going to be right next to her face or her body piece. It's going to slide down like that. I know that that means, and I do have her mouth sort of blocked out here on her body. I know that it's only going to go up about that high. So I'm going to mark that here, that's like the more or less the top of where her jaw is going to go. And I know that it's going to open probably no more than that. And all of this is going to get covered with pajamas and jawline and everything. So I can mark the bottom of her jaw there. And now I know that I have to keep all of that space clear. I can't put any dots in there to hold up her pajama pieces. Otherwise, it will interfere with the action of her jaw, of the mechanism. So I'm going to put a dot here where I know that I have some room, just right here on the edge. And I know that this piece is going to go right there on that. So I'm just doing a test fit now before I pull the other protective layer off. And I know that I need some dots for her other pajamas. So I'm going to put one here for sure. And since it's a slightly bigger piece, we'll put one here too. We might want one up here at the top, just to keep that up in the air. What I might do is let's put one up there. So we have to find out where that's going to go. Right, so I'm watching the bottom of this hem here. So it's like right here. I'm going to put a little lower than I am estimating, just to be on the safe side. Okay. Now in her robes, the big piece is under the little piece. Little piece goes on top. So I'm going to do that here too. This is going to be the first piece. Again, I'm watching the bottom because I know it just barely covers. And yeah, let's do it like right. There's a little bit of overhang there. Let's do it like that. Okay. And then let's pull that piece. And then on top of that, on the back side of this piece, so I want there to be some space between, oh, goodness. So I want there to be some space between these two layers. So in addition to this piece, I'm going to add a half of a piece. So I'm going to go in and cut one of these in half. I'm going to put that on the inside of this hem here. Like that. And then it will stick to the top. Keep some distance from the top of this guy right here. It's probably going to go about like that. Okay. Great. So now, next thing we know is that her legs are going to go on the back here. And we know that part's going to get covered up. We know this part's going to get covered up. And then we want to just stick out, this way. Because I know on my drawing here that when I traced her legs, it came up like the bottom of this leg piece. The bottom of this leg piece came up just below the bottom of her body piece. So I can line those up a little bit. Like that. Yeah. Seems right. And we can just double check. So we can see her leg comes out right around where her pajamas split. And that's pretty much what we've got going on here. So let's make some bunny slippers. We're going to need some small bits of adhesive. So let's cut another group in half. And we'll use that on the bottom of each ear. Like that. And then another one here. Okay. And then that's going to go right in the front here. Yeah, something like that. Let's do the same on this one. Okay. And the question is, well, yeah, so then her feet will really stick out from that because we're going to put dots on her legs here, and those will probably catch the backs of the ears. So her feet are really going to stick way far forward. But that's going to be all right. Okay, and now I'm just going to line up her body with this is one reason this cutting method has a grid on it is helpful because I can kind of line up her back so that that's nice and straight, and then I can lay out her feet to be more or less on a straight line, like a perpendicular line. So I can kind of angle them a little bit in a way that looks nice. Like that. That really flips up. So it flips up a little bit more than I'd like. Yeah, maybe it's okay. I can always angle it back. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, why don't we curl these in just a little bit? There we go. No, this is super weird. But, you know, we gotta give him some eyes. Bunny face. There you go. I don't know. It's a weird detail, but it's really funny. Maybe I have to go in and put the inside of their ears. I've got this cream. Why don't I cut this little? Yeah. Why don't we? I think it's gonna be worth it. Let's cut a little bit here. Because it's not very fuzzy right now. So we got this like paper tape that we made before. Let's cut a little strip. We'll round off the top of it like that. And then we'll just cut, I don't know, probably that much. Okay. And then we'll put that inside the ear. Yeah, that makes it look like an ear. All right, now we're talking. Do the same on this side. Okay. Probably should be a little shorter. Yeah, there you go. Universal symbol for bunny. Let's do the other side. So strange. Of course the witch has to have bunny slippers. It's the Sandman. It's funny, my only other reference for the Sandman was like Sandman comics. And that character does not wear bunny slippers, although I kind of wish that he did. Great. That looks good. One last one. Oh, yes, we'll have to do this again for the other side. Oh, goodness. So there we go. That's good. What do you think, Olga? Does it still look like a good bunny slipper? Yeah, okay. So what else do we know about this? Well, we know where her mouth, we need to draw in her mouth, I think, so that we can be sure. Oh, did I? Yeah, you know what? I forgot one thing. So on the last witch, in making this cutout for the body, so it's going to have a longer one of these, but it's going to have one of these. And then what I've been doing is been putting 2 dots on here to hold the jaw on. And then that will go through the paper and come out the other side. The thing is, when you have 2 dots, that's going to be like 1 dot here, 1 dot here. That's not going to be enough room for it to go down to open her jaw all the way. Like if those dots are going through the paper to the other side, when you go down this far, it will stop because the dots will come up against the paper. So we have to open that paper up more. I should have remembered to do that because we did it to the chef one. But the good news is that it's all covered by the pajamas. So we can just kind of go in and as long as we're not cutting, cutting the pajamas or anything. Man, that pink is bright. But still a good idea. Yeah, just cut out a little bit. There we go. So now there's going to be plenty of room to open the jaw straight down. We'll go ahead and do that in this one as well, which is what I should have done yesterday. I was thinking about it. How far from the bottom did I get? You know, like a pinky's worth. It's a good reference. That way I still have room to put the legs, even though all this is going to get covered. I just like to leave myself some options there. Yep. Okay, save that one till later. That goes in the scraps. All right, so we're going to color in her mouth. And this always makes me nervous because, you know, you have one shot to do this, basically. Oh, thank you, Olga. I'm glad you like the blue bunny slippers. Okay, so this always makes me a little nervous because you have one shot. And the paper does pick up, it kind of bleeds a little bit. Now, I know that these both have the mouth in more or less the same place, but like I can already see that they're slightly different, and that makes me a bit nervous. So I'm gonna this one, it looks like it comes up just barely above the cut of the for the mechanism there. So I'm gonna take this one down just a little bit. It's sticking to me. Okay. So I'm going to just follow this here like that. Okay. My goodness, it's 4 o'clock. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Is this too long for a broadcast? I don't know. Got the top of the mouth. I'm just going to get the other top of the mouth here. Make sure they're about the same size and shape. I don't think we'll get to the mechanism installation in this broadcast. We might have to pick that up because I have been working for 2 hours and I need to take a break, you know? But what we probably will be able to do is get through the completion of this side sans mechanism, but like all her pieces stuck together. So at least you can see what she's going to look like. That's really the important part. And this brush does make it nice to fill in large pieces. It's harder on the edge. It's harder to get the edges right though, so that's why I have both. And now that we have the mouth in the same spot, we can put in the tongue, but the tongue sits flush against the body. So it's not I'm not using a dot, I'm using a little piece of double stick tape. And I might as well put the other tongue in while I'm at it, because I've got this piece of tape. Okay, so this one goes on this side. There is it's like a little cut for the middle of her tongue to give it a little dimension. So I'm just going to round that off here. And then that goes right in the back bottom of her mouth here. Again, I don't need to be too precise with this because the jaw isn't going to open past that far. For this one, just try and sit that right in the back. There we go. Great. This looks like a minion, doesn't it? Okay. So now we have that. The jaw we have to put on way later. We're just going to keep it in place so we can kind of imagine where the nose is going to go. So I'm following that mouth, that we want the jaw to sit just above that. That's where it will eventually go. And the nose sits just barely right above that. So I'm just looking for reference at her completed ones. It's also angled. Yeah, looks about right. So let's take our little dots on there. I'm going to put them on the nose instead of, it's a little on the nose, you know, these dot placements. Okay, so let's get that right in the right spot. Great. And then this one goes about here. Yep, that's where it goes. Okay, then we're going to put on her eyeballs, and they sit flush against her face. So we're going to use tape on that instead of a dot. Okay. And that goes just inside the edge of her face, and it angles down a little bit. Like that. Maybe not that much. There we go. Yeah, I mean, it's not exact, but again, I kind of like that jitter. Now, her eyebrow is a little bit more interesting. It's at least something a little bit different. So I am going to cut a piece of foam. This part doesn't have any adhesive on it, so I'm going to get rid of it. I cut a thin strip of foam. And I'm going to lay this under the front of her eyebrow. I mean, I'm a big guy, but working at this scale is really like the minimum. This is like as small as I can go. I feel like a giant. I'm going to hang it off the edge just a little bit. That way I can trim it to size after it's in place. And I'm just going to lay it on flush with the eyebrow like that. Did I actually cut enough to do the same to the other eyebrow while I'm at it? It'd be nice. We'll see. Right now, her other eyebrow piece is missing. It's in there somewhere. Yeah, it's good to keep everything organized, don't you think? I've always thought so. Well, we'll come back to that. Cut that piece, cut that piece. So now we have this little eyebrow that has a ridge right at the edge. And to that, I'm gonna take a Sharpie, and it's gonna give her like a shadow right under her eyes, which is gonna look really cool. I'm trying to avoid the paper on the first pass because the paper does wick the ink of the Sharpie. So I'm trying to color just right up to the edge, but not onto it. Again, doing my best, not something super, there we go, super critical. There we go. Let that dry for just a second because it doesn't quite dry as fast on the foam as it does on paper. Backing. And we can lay this right on her eyes. Now it does sort of stick off. It does sort of, while her eyepiece is angled down, this sort of sticks straight across. Like that. It kind of comes off the edge of her eyes. There you go. And then we're going to put on her hat, which is going to push down her the top of her eyebrow a little bit, but then it'll have a nice angle. It'll angle right up into her head, which is what we want. So I'm going to get a couple of dots on here. We're going to get one that holds that eyebrow down, and the other one's going to go like right there. Okay. Just like that. Great. And then the thing is, I'm not going to set her jowl just yet because it's part of what covers up the mechanism. So I want to keep that open for as long as possible. But one thing I can do is that I can set her ear on top of the jowl now. It will also help me later for trying to put the jowl back in the same spot because it will look right. Her ear kind of overlaps the edge of her, the edge of her hat like that. Okay. She gets a little T shape for her ear. Give her that little ear line. And then we're going to put her eyes in, which is always the last part that I do on a puppet. I mean, this is the last part for you guys. I'm going to do the mechanism later, but this will be the last part for this broadcast. And I try and get them so that they look back at me. Again, it's a little nerve-wracking because you only have one shot. And the Sharpies do, again, tend to bleed a little bit, so you kind of have to wait to see what shape the eye has taken. and adjust it as you go. That looks about right. Yeah. Oh, and she gets some hairs. She gets little black hairs that are coming out above, kind of straggling up. Yeah, something like that. I might make those a little darker with the brush. This is helpful to have you all see this because this is on the on the camera from a similar distance, so I can look and see how it looks on your view. It'll give me a sense of how it will look in the real view. So now the last thing to do for this piece is to put the backing on it. Now that all the pieces are at least in a spot where they're not gonna change the outline, I can do the backing of it. And this is a step that is new for this production, probably one that I will carry over to my short film, The Moon is Made of Green Cheese. And that's to give it this like white outline. And it is kind of reminiscent of sort of sticker styles that are popular now. And I really like it. It really gives a cool definition to the puppet itself, makes it stand out in a nice way, and also kind of references things that we've seen before. So it looks familiar in a way. Even though these are going to be puppets that are walking and or like running around and singing and all that kind of stuff. Kind of gives us some reference. It's like, oh yeah, that sticker, it sort of feels like a sticker. Plus, maybe we'll turn some of these designs into stickers. It could be a neat little, it could be like a cool take home from the show. Okay, so now we got the outline traced out. It was really just going around about 1/8 of an inch on the outside of the puppet. Now I'll just take my scissors and cut it out. There we go. And then I'm going to wait to fix that. Because again, I want to have the mechanism in place. But we can lay this down and get a sense of what it's going to look like when she's all done. Just like that. And that is our Sandman Witch from the Little Orchestra Society's production of Hansel and Gretel, which will be premiering this November. And of course, that's just half of it, and not even, because we have to do the mechanism. If you like this, it's been really nice having you here. And I hope you enjoyed this special version of Puppet Time Online, of Live at the Desk. If you'd like to see more of this, let us know. Let us know in the comments. Send us some love. You can email us at contact@puppetkitchen.com. I think I can throw that up on the on screen here. You can find us online at puppetkitchen.com. We're on Instagram at the Puppet Kitchen and Twitter at Puppet Kitchen. This is our first Twitch broadcast, so here we are on Twitch as well. So hello, Twitch world. And I think that's about it. We'll probably hope, with luck, next week we'll have another guest. If people really love this working at the desk live broadcast, we'll do more of this, and you can see the whole production of Hansel and Gretel come together. So thanks again for being here, and as always, until next time, just remember, you don't have to do everything to do something. We'll see you next time.